Right. In this part, we are going to focus on another technology. In this particular case, we are going to look at JavaScripts and the use of JavaScripts in various different, cases. And then we discuss how we can use them to create interactive web pages. Right. Now, starting from the beginning of what JavaScript is, basically you can look at it as a modern high-level scripting language, which is extensively used in various other technologies as well. And it's powerful now compared to, 2 decades back, where it is originally invented. It not just provide the dynamic, pages or interactivity. It's beyond now. So you can see that it can handle both the front end, back end, and even like there are some standards. So the other point is it goes with the structure, styles, and then interactivity. So this will be the one of the three core technologies that you'll see in the web development. And it supports all the browsers. If you focus on by using JavaScript, what are the capabilities? Mainly, we are going to focus on the first few. How do you handle events and user interactions? Like what might happen when you click a button? We are going to look at like very simple interactions, but then there's more. You can change what is inside the web page. And in the app development also can be done by manipulating what is inside the page. We normally call DOM, document object model, where you can change what is inside, starting from simple text to even the CSS tags. So everything can be done, right? And most common one also you will notice that is we will notice in later that you can also communicate with the servers. Validations, which is quite common whenever we get the user inputs, we can check whatever user inputs, whether it's what we intended, even the processing, right? And the final one is you can create reusable models and the components, which is a core part in web development nowadays. So here are like some examples. You might, in the first part in the here, you will see in the form filling something that something that you normally witness, right? When you're trying to enter something that you are giving a feedback for the users, especially validation, right? And then sometimes we have a clickable content, like when you click it, that is open up. In this particular case, you will see in section 1, section 2, and section 3. And when you click section 2, that particular section 2 comes up. And this is common in even images. When you click images, like it switch to the next image and so on. So there are many interactivity you can incorporate with JavaScript. And you might also notice this whenever you type something that comes with the suggestions, which is one of the interactive features that you will normally see. Again, can be done together with the JavaScript. And these are like some of the examples. If you look at in the JavaScript used in the modern web stacks, it's not simple just browser scripting. Early days, we normally say it just we use for the browser scripting technology for interactivity. No, now this is going for a full stack. You can develop a full, web applications, which can be more efficient, modular, and you can work with different user interfaces, mobile applications. You can develop backends, services. Even you can develop like desktop application. So you have a lot of frameworks, libraries to cater this one. Now, if you particularly look at the front-end technologies, you might have noticed like some of these React is quite popular, which is a library created by the Facebook, which is used for developing front ends, which is very useful, which is based on the what we call the component-based user interface development, right? Similar to that, there are many others. And if you look at the backend technologies, um, we can use JavaScript on the server, we normally call it. And this is same language. Now you can see we can use the same language for both the client and the servers. So this is useful for what we call the full stack development, starting from front end, back end, everything in the same language. Especially this is useful for real-time applications like chats, you might notice, which is based on this one. And also some other techniques available in serve as well. Then the next point is the build tools. Again, right now, I told you like JavaScript can be used to develop full applications. Then we need to bundle everything together as a just one single applications. We call bundlers. So we can put everything together. We call build tools. So ideally, what happens with the build tools is you can put all the JavaScript CSS put in so that you can load faster. And then there are some standard as well. Modern JavaScripts, we have something called ECMS script standards, which is actually built around these technologies. So it's not just a simple scripting language. That's what I want to highlight here. Right, now going back to implementations details, it's simple. Now I hope you remember that in HTML coding, we can incorporate JavaScript as well. Simply, you can write a simple script. We saw a script, and we can end up with a script. And simply, if you want just print a message, you can type console.log hello world, which will be appear in the body of the text, right? That's if you're going to have it as a script, which you can place in multiple different places, which I'm going to discuss now, or you can create as a separate script file. For example, all your JavaScript codes we can put into a script file we call script.js with the extension.js, and you can save it, right? So advantage of this is, you can write it cached. So the first time it might take some time to load it, but next time it will be faster. Right. Maybe I can, show you this, and then we'll continue our discussion. Right. I open up a notepad, and then I type the basic HTML structure, and then save it as page 1 HTML and the JS labs. So this is my page 1. Let me double click, and this is how it looked like. We don't have anything inside yet because it's empty. We have not typed anything inside this. Right. Of course, as we have discussed, we can type a script. Usually remember the location, we can put it in the head or a body. If you're put it inside the body, usually they say that towards the end of the body. So let me use script, and then I will say /script, right? Console.log. Okay. Let me say hello world. Semicolon. It's not mandatory, but it's recommended to have. So I just type this, let me say save, and then let's go back and refresh. But if you want to see what's inside this, you have to right click on it, the page, and go to inspect. And then if you go to console, right, you will see the hello world here. We'll discuss later on, like how do you, put something inside this page by manipulating what we call the document object modeling or the DOM, that I will discuss. Right. Now, just to reiterate what we have done. Okay, here is what I have written down. So we were discussing including the script tag here. The command that I have used is console.log hello world. And then I save it as a HTML. And when I double click and refresh, okay, what I told you is you don't see the message here, but if you right click on the page, web browser, go to inspect and check on the console, where you will see the word hello world. Actually, when we are continuing our discussion, when we try out the commands, I'm going to use this again, where we can type and we can observe the JavaScript commands. In case if you want to see a message on the page, in this case, we are going to use alert command, which will pop up window. This is called a pop-up window, which will pop up, and then you see the message inside. So two commands that we have discussed under this, which will included within the file itself. Right. This is one way to include the JavaScript commands. Right. Now, the next one is the recommended approach I'm going to discuss, which is you save the JavaScript as a separate file as external one, and then we are going to call it, right? The simple command for this is, we can say script, and then I can say src, and file name, I will again name say script.js. This is the file name I'm going to provide, right? And we'll end up with /script. Now, this is I'm going to save as page number 2. And then under the JavaScript file, I'm going to have some commands. So console.log, say hello world. This is what we have written earlier. So let me save it as a script file. So I'm going to save it as script.js. Note that I'm using double quotes. Make sure that you properly save it. Otherwise, it will be saved as a text file. Okay, I'm going to save it. Now you see I have two files. I have page 2 HTML where we have this. Let me share with you the code. And within the script, we have console.log and then this message. Right, now let's open it up. So I'm going to go back to here. Now you can see I have two files, page 2, and we have a JavaScript file separately. Let me double click it. When I double click it, it will open up. You can see here. It says page 2. You don't see here anything, but to see, you can go to inspect and you can go to console, and then you should see the message hello world, which confirms that in this particular case, we have externally, we put this externally. Right now, let me put down all these separately. So I hope you can see now what we have. So this is page 2, this is a script, and this is what you see inside the console. Right. So in the modern practices nowadays, you see that you call this as a type module, which we need, meaning that enable imports module scope. So we can type here equal module. And then also you can say differ. So this is something we use when you work with external libraries. You will not see okay, it's okay. We'll go with this. Right. So whenever you want to try out some JavaScript command, you can directly access the console even without writing into the file HTML. So that means you can directly go to the empty browser page and right click on it and click on inspect and go to console. So in this particular case, you can type it here, particular command, and then you can get the information. So for example, console dot, we can say log hello. Right now you can notice that immediately after we enter, you are getting the message hello world there. Similarly, you can say alert, we'll say hello, and you will notice that the pop-up message. Right. So we discussed this because the next part would be like we are going to trying out some of the JavaScript commands. So let's move on. Right. Now, this is what we have discussed earlier, where to put the contents, two places. Usually we say you can go anywhere in the document, but you can find two common places. It can go to head or at the end of, body. And ideally, when you're using with the header, usually you use type module and the differ. That's common common practice when you are putting the scripts. Okay, now let's move on to looking at the basics of JavaScripts. Again, remember, JavaScript is case sensitive. It's very important that you understand the use of variable naming, especially when you are creating this, right? And then after each JavaScript statement, we normally use semicolon. Not compulsory, but it's always recommended this. When you're trying out or when you debug JavaScript, always use console output. That's what is recommended. You can also use alert. We have checked both commands, which will display directly on the console, or if you use alert, it will pop up and you get a pop-up window. Right. Now, if you would like use comments, you can use single line comments by using double slashes or multi-line comments with slash and star. So ideally, when you say something like this is a comment, right? You will notice that nothing comes out because it's a comment. The next one is multi-line. Usually multi-line comments here. We will start because in this one it's actually enter and it's not complete. Usually multi-line comments can be incorporated like this, right? So that's one way to do. Let me try with the shift enter, multi-line. Yes. If you type shift and enter, you can go to the next line, comments, and then this should work. Okay, so you don't see anything. It's because you will notice in this particular case, we have multi-line. So this is not possible with if you use double slashes. Right, that's about the comments. Let's move on. Especially when you want to with the variables, we are using let and a const. Earlier we used var, but the recent version allowed to use let and const. Ideally, const is to say the constant value, let is to define, but not var. So var we have used earlier. You might see sometimes in my previous slide here, I use var. So it's we use for variable declaration, we can say let. So for example, let's say we want to create a variable called count with 5. Usually we say let count equals 5. So once you do that, you can change this. For example, I can say, okay, count is count plus 1. And you can say console.log, you can say count, which gives you the 6, right? So in this particular case, you can notice that what happens when you work with the count. So that is how declare it, right? So similarly, we can use const, let's say rate equals 0.75. And then we can multiply 7.5, sorry, we can say rate times, we can say 2. So we are getting 1.5. So that's how we can define usually variables, the two commands. But few rules you need to remember. Usually the variable should start with a letter or underscore. Sometimes we will use dollar, but most of the time you will see letters and underscores. After that, you can have letters, digits, and the underscores, but not any other special, characters, right? So which one to use, let or const? Ideally, they say use const. But if you want to make a reassignment, then go for let, right? Just to show you what I mean by this is Now, if you try to change the rate, let's say rate equals rate into times 2, okay, that's a type error. And you cannot, constant value cannot be changed. That's what it says. So if you're thinking of changing rate, then define it using let, not const. Okay, moving on. Now, you don't have to always assign a value, and later you can do it. So the ideally, we can say let it say value, right? And then we can later say value equals 5. So this can be done, right? And similar to that, there are like other values are also possible. So in this particular case, variable is declared and then we assign. Or you can do it in the one shot, like we can say value is 5, right? Both ways. And now if you want to check the values, for example, usually we say, look at this, you can say value plus value. So you will see it state, right? So although we have writing down the console directly, so this command can be used in a separate script and you can try it, right? For example, I can go back to my previous two files. Okay, so page 2, and then okay, the script, right? So for example, I can say okay, let value, right, and we can say value equals 5, and then let's say print, sorry, we say console dot log value plus. Now let me save it, file save, and let's run this. And then to see the answer, you have to go to inspect and you see under the console, right? So there are two outcomes. The console log hello world, the hello world is output from script.js1. And with the line number 5, this is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? 5, the outcome is 10. So couple of things about different data types you are going to assign. You can create a declare variable without assigning any value, and that value can be assigned later on. Or you can use a special value null, which is normally we will use in multiple different cases. If you unknown that value or the value is empty, so we can use special value null for this, right? One thing when you're assigning numbers, especially the numbers could be integer or float, but in JavaScript, usually it's used 64-bit IEEE double type. So what it means is there's a special case of how numbers are represented inside. We normally call IEEE 754 and so on. So which allocate fixed number of bits to represent the numbers. So that's what it means here. Oh, okay. Moving on to the next one. Few cases, remember that we are defining different types of data, and you should understand depending on how we represent the JavaScript handle, differently. So let me discuss this idea of this. Maybe I'll take a new window and the console. Okay, and then what we say is, okay, remember that you cannot, we say foo, the variable declaration, and then we use 5. Remember, we are using double quotes, which means that basically it will take it as a string value or a text, right? So when you say print or we say console.log foo, you can see it says 5, that string 5. But what about this? If you say just foo and foo, just make a note of this. I think you are familiar this with the other programming languages. Simply, you have two strings and with plus, it's simply concatenation. So what happens here is when you have a string value, so you have two string value and addition, which means it concatenates the two. Now you have to be very careful about how you are representing numbers. Let's say the number is also integer, string, then the same thing happens, right? For example, let's say we have foo, but this time number 5 as a string. So what happens now if you use foo plus foo? You get 55. It's not 5 plus 5, 10, because it's string. So the data type matters. Remember, especially we are making an assignment. Okay, now focus on the second one. You are assigning, a string for the first variable and the number for the second variable. So you can notice here we will say, okay, we have 5. And then let bar, it's just a number. Now, what happens now? Right? So it concatenates because there is a typecasting, which means that since there's a number and a string, so that also converted in string and this simply merges them. Okay, so strings, what we were discussing, and then what might happen if you're using some of the operators, that's what we have discussed here. So you can assign values to, let's say here we will use true, right? And then we can say console.log who we take it as a, Boolean variable. You have both true and false. Okay, now that we have discussed about the data types, let's talk about the arrays. Simply, you can have a group of values, and ideally, you can use let or const. In this particular case, I'm assuming that I'm not going to change the values inside. And JavaScript supports mixed values, so I'm using a mixed value here. You can see the first one is a int, the next two is a two string values. Right. Small change. I think I should change this. This is my old node. So it should be changed into console.log, which is what I recommend now. So I'm going to go back here. Right. We are going to say const and simply we are defining an array. And I'm actually using mixed types. And then 5. Sorry. Right. This will define. Okay. So the problem is we have already declared. So one problem is we had to redeclare. This is the problem. what we use. So you cannot delete this. Maybe then for the time being, I will say let here, right? I think you got the point. Otherwise, I have to restart this. So I will take a copy paste. So let allow us to change. One thing to note about this one is when you have multiple value accessing, it's a zero index. The indexes are used to get each and every value one at a time. So you can notice that if you want to access the first value, we can say I'm going to use console.log of 4 and 0. Or we can say console.log 1 to access the second one. And then this is, third item. So you can notice that the change of this, we get the first and the second and the third value, but remember they have two different data types. Why I actually using this, you will see when it comes to comparison operators, which we are going to discuss next. In this particular case, you can see I'm actually creating array called colors, and we are having red, green, and blue. There are a few methods we can work with, arrays. So you can see there are a lot of, methods that you can use for this purpose, which I'm not going to spend time on it, but I think you can get uh, hands of this and try or use of this. But let me explain a couple of them. Now, for example, here, we declare the colors array with the three values as strings, red, green, and blue. And with the index 0, we access in the color 1. And length variable will give you how many, the number of items inside the colors array, which is 3. Now you can notice that we use push method to insert another value to here, so which is yellow, and then we'll have 4 colors, right? So let's start. Let me try together with you. So we will define now it as const. Okay, const colors. And I'm going to have red, green, and blue. Right. Now, when you say console.log colors, you can see we have 3, red, green, and blue. So if you want to access the first one, we can put index. So when you put index 0, which means that you're accessing the first value, that is the color red. And that's what you notice with the second command. Let's move to the third command. If you want to know like how many colors inside, we can use length. We say color dot. We say length, which is 3. We have 3 colors inside. The push method, you will see what happens. We say colors dot push, let's say yellow, right? And you can see now we have 4 colors, red, green, blue, and yellow, right? A simple for loop where instead of using this one, how you can use, you can see define colors in a single one. Let's just type, we say const C of colors. And what we do is console dot log and see. And you can notice that this will display, right? So here you can notice I have used, it's a simple for loop we have used, which will go through each and every color and it will actually print the value. So what happens? It print the four colors one after the other, right? Let's look at the different operators. So these are like operators available in JavaScript. You can see simple arithmetic operators like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Percentage symbol we normal call modulo operator or remainder. Then we have increment numbers, decrement numbers, and you can have plus and equal, which adds the value to itself. Minus and equal can also be used, right? So maybe we can go through. Let's right. So simple numbers, you can just console log is, we can come up here or you can just directly type it here. Both are okay. So for example, let me directly type. I can just type something like this and you can observe the outcome. 10 plus 3, it's 13 plus. So 10 minus 3, of course, you can see 7 and 10 into 3, that is 30. Okay, I want to discuss this. 10 divided by 3. Okay, this is something that you should notice and you should understand. I told you the number representation, especially in JavaScript, is uses IEEE, the floating point representation. And you can, if you look at the last value, it's not the actual value that we need, right? Isn't it? So you have to be very careful on this when you work with the numbers. So there are specific way you should do it. Or and sometimes, although you have an issue, if you limit it to 2 or 3 decimal papers, decimal places, this won't be an issue. Right. For example, now if you are just multiplying two numbers like this, right? This might be okay. But sometimes if you think about if you're getting a small error like this, if you multiply with a large number, the error might be substantial. So you have to be very careful of how you actually performs additions, multiplications, and so on. So for example, let's say we have 18.35 plus 2.4. You are getting the answer, but some cases like 3, you will see you will have a lot of issue of this. So if you're wondering why this is happening, because some numbers you cannot exactly represent with all this binary with the restrictions. So you have to be very careful. So one way to handle this is, if you see, is something like this. For example, here we put into cents. So instead of that, the very same above expressions can be rewritten like this. For example, we can say 835 plus 230 and then divide by 100. So this is a trick that we normally use if you want to work with, if you want to avoid the issues like previously. So make a note of this. It's a common practice that how we actually performs arithmetic operation with the numbers. Right. Okay. Now, that said, let's move on. We were discussing about division. Okay, modular division. We have 10 mod 3. Basically, you divide 10 by 3, the remainder, that is 1. So plus plus, finish up to this point and let me know, then we'll move to the next one. So you can use things like this. Let me say, okay, let x equals, let's say 10. We can say x plus plus, which is same as adding it. So you can say console.log. You can see it's the 11 here, right? Similar to x minus minus. So if you say console.log x, which gives you the correct value, that is 10. Similar to that, if you use x plus equals 5, what this means is you get the current value x and add 5 and multiply. That is, x is currently 10, you should get 15, right? So you observe the outcome of this. Similarly, if you use 3 minus equal, which means x minus 3, that is 15 minus 3, that is 12, you should get the x as 12. Similar to that, if you have multiplication like this, so basically x times 2, x is 12, which is 24. Right. I hope comfortable with all the arithmetic operators. Right. Remember that when you want to compare the values, especially when you want to make decisions, we are using comparison operators. Few things to note: how you represent the numbers is very, very important, right? So first of all, the first two, normally we will not consider them, but let me explain. Now, for example, if you have something like this, 5, is it equals to 5? What do you think? It says true according to this one, because as the number value, it's equal. But if you want to check both values and both data types, so you better use triple equal signs, right? So in this particular case, it says false because the two are not equal to each other. I mean, respect to both value and the data type. So if you're checking both, make sure you use triple equal signs. So for example, if you say 5 not equal to, let's say, 6, it says true. But if you look at again, true, not equal. But what about this? It's still true. Then if you have this, then only you will be false. So remember that the use of these triple equal signs or exclamation and double equal signs when you want to check whether value is identical, which means the value is equal and the data types is also the same. Other ones, I think you are very familiar, so I don't think there's a point we can check. So it's true. 5 greater than or equal to 5. 5 less than 6. Less than or equal to 10. Right. So that part is not that difficult. Right. Next, we can check on the logical operators part. In logical operators, what we can do is simply you can use AND operators, O operators, and the NOT operator. Basically, checking the values. So, for example, when you say true and true, we know it will evaluate true, right? So, checking two expressions. For example, let's say you are checking whether 5 is greater than 3, and let's say 2 is less than 5. You're checking both, right? So the both expressions, right hand side and left hand side, evaluate should be evaluated true. Now, operator on the other hand. So it will be true whenever one is true. So if the first one is false, remember to use vertical bar, two vertical bars. You are getting true, true or false, again true, true or true. All these cases, it will be true. For example, let's say we have 3. Is it less than 5? No, right? It's false. And then if you say expressions like this, now what happens? It's true, right? So the outcome of this will be, it's a true expression. The first part will be false. The second part is true. So both evaluates to true value. Last one, not operator, opposite. If you say not true, it's false, not false, it's true. So if you say 5 greater than 3, it's true, right? 5, is it greater than 3? Yes, and not this, meaning it's false, right? So I hope you are comfortable up to now. Simple assignments could be done. Let x equals 10. So x is 10, and then we are going to say plus equals 5. So which is 15, right? Simple assignment. Right. Let's move to the control structures. The first one is if something is true, then we are going to do something and use, notice the use of curly brackets here. Whatever the condition, if it is meeting, then we are going to do this, right? So you can see we are writing down simple, the constant, we say test, testing. If it is equal, you can see we are using the double equal here, which is the same. And then we will put a message, right? So the alternative should be like this. So let me go to back to the here. So I'm going to say const test equal testing, right? And then we will check if test is it equal to testing, which is true, right? And then what we can do, I will type shift and enter, and then we'll say console. It should be console log. This is what I recommend, right? And we will type, okay, you haven't changed anything. Semicolon, shift enter to the next one. And then curly brackets, that's the first block. Then else, open curly bracket, shift enter. then console log. Okay, you have changed something. Shift enter. Just to type everything in as it is. So you can say the output will be you haven't changed anything. Right. Let me work on the example. So we define a constant value mark and we set it to 70. And then we'll say if marks greater than equal to 75, sol.log distinction, else if say marks greater than or equal to 50, then we say console.log hits pass, else console log fail. I totally forgot. Okay. Okay. It should be marks. Okay, in my case, I said marks. So let me define it again. Const marks. Sorry, it's 70. Right now, let me go back again. Okay, it says pass. Small mistake when I type my variable name. I mistakenly type marks. And what I declared is marks. Right. Okay. Let me explain the last one line. So we say const result equals marks. Should be marks, right? Greater than or equal to 50. We'll say pass. Otherwise, we'll say fail. Console.log result. So you see it's pass. So basically, you can see instead of writing a very lengthy one, this is the short hand form. It directly saves the outcome of this selection statement. You check whether marks is greater than or equal to 50. If it is say pass, which will be saved as a result, or else it will be saved as fail. And this will output pass here. So let's look at how to write a loop in JavaScript. There are many, but the most common one will be the for loop, where you have iteratives. That means you have a set of variables go through this. So ideally in a for loop, you will see three parts. You will see the initialization. For example, in our example, we declare a variable I as 0. Then you have a test condition, that is whether I is less than 2, and then you increment it, plus plus. So what happens here now? So you start with 0, and you have a test condition until the I is less than 2. You are going to keep increment on. You'll get 0, then we have 1. Right. So let's check this. So we are writing a for loop. We'll say let I equals 0, and the condition is I is less than up to I2, and we keep on incrementing I. Then console.log, say I. So you can notice that this will be a repeat twice with the 0 and 1. We are going to use with an array. So we discussed arrays earlier. So you can notice we say constant items, and we have 3 items, foo, bar, and bash. And you can notice that within the for loop, it goes from 0 to the item's length. You remember the item's length one, it will give you the number of items. In this particular case, it will yield 3. So up until the I is less than 3, it keep on increment. So you will have 0, 1, and 2, which should display one after each other, right? So let's try this. We have const items. We have foo, we have bar. So that's the first part. We define an array called items. Right. So the for loop looks like this. We say let I is 0 and I is less than items dot length, which we have discussed earlier, give the number of items. In this particular case, it's 3. So you will get 0, 1, 2, and then within that you will increment this one. And then we say console, sorry. We say items, and then we say I. So you can see now the outcome. So let's look at the while loop as well. So in this particular case, we will first define a variable, let's say n, which is equal to 0, right? And then what we do, we have a while loop. The condition we set to where this is less than 3. If that is the case, we will say console.log n plus plus, which is what happens. You print n and then you increase n by 1, right? And then so first you start with the 0, print it and increase by 1. Go to the next step, then n is 1, Is it less than 3? Yes, print 1, then increase this. Right now you're getting 2, print 2, increase it, then you get 3. 3, is it less than 3? No, then you come out. So we have 4 and we define const color of, let's say we have 3 colors, red, green, and blue. We can put in the same line. You can see it will print one after the other. Right. Next, let's look at creating custom functions. Ideally, there are many functions already available, built in, we call native functions, which you can use. We just look at only alert only, but there are many others, right? But you can use your own custom functions depend on your requirement. So the creation of function is easy. You will type the keyword function and then whatever the name of the function. Now, in this particular case, within bracket, everything is empty, which means that we are not expecting any, arguments here. So which means that if you need any arguments, the values you need to process, you have to type it. In this function, actually, simply we are output a simple message. So therefore, we are not taking anything in. So this is what we call the function declaration. So simply what happens when you run, right, it will create the function, nothing will happen. But when you want to use it, you can call it, right? So that's what happens. Okay, now let me see the code in run. So in this particular case, I'm going to create a function foo, and then simply we have console.log and then simple message. Right. Okay, so this has been done earlier, so the foo is there. So now when you want to use foo, the function, so what happens when you call it? Okay, now I'm getting the problem with this one is, let me take a new one because I have already used this. So you can see how it works. So I have declared from the very beginning, clear in this. So we create our function called foo, and then it's simply a print a message. And when you call, so it will run, and what is inside is just simple printing a message will print. Right. One thing is, of course, when you want to use the values, we can pass whatever the arguments, we can use it. And in this particular case, we have to declare what we need. For example, let's say we want to get adding some numbers, you need the two numbers, right? And then you can type it whatever the code within this. So in this particular case, we are returning, meaning like there'll be an outcome which we can use and directly call this, right? So in this particular case, let me use uh, to get two numbers and then return the values. Right. Now, one thing that we need to do is we'll create a function. We'll say function, we say add numbers, and simply we say a comma b. And then within that, simply we return a plus b. Right. Now, when you call the function, we can say add numbers. You can provide whatever numbers, let's say 2, 3, and that will be 5. And the beauty of this use of return is you can store. So for example, I can say result equal add numbers. Let's say I will use 20 and 30. So the results will be 50. So when you say console.log, we say a result, we say 50 is inside. Right. So one thing that I would like to discuss it here is it's very important that how to handle the variables, especially when you have a block. We use the brackets, and depending on the block, the values will be different, right? Now, let me give a small code and let's see what happens, right? So for this, I'm going to write a small script. For that, I'm going to use my previous script file. So let me go to scripts and then let me type a simple script. Let me say I'm going to declare x as 10. And let me use curly bracket, which indicates that this is the block element. And within that, we'll say x equals 20. And then we'll say console.log. And then I will type x. Close the block element here. And then again, console.log x. The question that I want to ask you from you is this. So if I run this, what is the output? So in this particular case, we are declaring 10, but this is a different block. The scope will be different. So when you go inside, so the x here and x here will be treated differently. And here we define it as 20. And that will, display 20 here. But when you come up from the scope, it's different. And that x, what is inside and this, it's different. And this x is still 20, so we'll get 20 as the outcome. So variable can depend on where you have declared. We can, declare is global and local. Okay, so I think we'll stop at this point and we'll discuss more in our next class. Especially what is remaining is now the real use of JavaScript, where I told you we can use this for manipulating what is inside the web page. So we will discuss how we can change elements inside the web page, especially in HTML as well as CSS. So to do that, we will first discuss about the DOM manipulations, and then we discuss something called different events, what should happen when you're clicking, when you're submitting, and so on. So, and we will also discuss how to form handling part. Right. With that said, we conclude for today, and we will discuss the next part.